If you want to really have a beautifully intimate relationship of like best friends, of close partners, of like people who can really take on the world together, explaining your wants, your desires, and how you guys plan to get there together is crucial.
Haven't we made it, my love? Oh, honey, look how we made it this far. Haven't we made it, my love? Oh, honey, look how we made it this far.
Hi, I'm Bobby Gray, and this is a channel where we talk about finances, relationships, romance, and growth mindsets. So the reason I love working with relationships is because I think that money can be one of the most intimate ways of getting to know another person. And I say this because if you really think about it, like if you give two people $1,000, those two people are going to spend it differently. And they can come from similar backgrounds, they can come from the same family even, and what they do with that money is going to be very unique to them. This has a lot to do with not just your upbringing, but then the people who you surround yourself with and your friend group. It's really important to kind of like break all of this down and get to know people through money, is because when we're in a relationship, knowing what somebody's goals are is really important because it changes the way we allocate and do things with our money. And even if you have separate bank accounts, you guys are still financially mingling. We are mingling with people financially from the very first date. Like, who pays? And that has a lot less to do with should actually be paying than who we think should be paying. Does that make sense? So like, if you think about it mathematically, maybe there is somebody who should be paying in that partnership. Like maybe one person is making more money than the other person, but we never think of things mathematically. And that's why finances is so important to really discuss, because the financial decisions we make are actually made mostly through emotion. Financial decisions we make are actually made mostly through emotion. And so we should understand the emotions that go behind our decisions. And we should really be knowing what those emotions are when we're in a relationship. Because deciding that investing is scary has a lot to do with like emotions that are not just within us, but within our past. So I love this story that my mom tells me from time to time to remind me to like reflect, uncover family stuff, and get to a better point in my own spiritual journey. So the story goes like this. There was once a dude or a girl or somebody in the kitchen, and they are cooking a fish, and they're cooking this fish next to their friend, and their friend looks at this fish in this pan and looks at the other friend, the person cooking, and says, "My goodness, why do you cook fish like that?" And so they say this because apparently the way that they were cooking the fish is that they cut off the most important part. And for story's sake, let's just say that this part of the fish gave them magical powers. So the chef person in the kitchen cooking had been cutting off half of the fish and only eating one side and throwing away the magical side. So they're really bothered by this whole conversation, and they call their mom and they're like, "Mom, why did you cook the fish this way?" And the mom goes, "I don't know. That's how my mom cooked it." The cook explains to the mom that they were doing it wrong the whole time and why it was wrong because they missed out on the magical part of the fish. The mom goes, "Oh my gosh, we should find out." Mom and the kid, who is the chef, they call grandma and they tell grandma the situation, and grandma responds, "I don't know why we cooked it that way. That's how my mom cooked it." Luckily, great grandma is still alive. So they go and visit great grandma, and all three of them explain the whole fish situation. They go through all the nutrients, all the magic that is being missed out on by only cooking half the fish. And the great grandma looks around at them, a little bit confused, and goes, "Well, we just did it that way because the pan was too small." That's the thing about finances. A lot of the things that we've been taught about finances, we are taught incorrectly. Partly because those incorrections were correct at the time they were taught, or made sense in the context that they were initially learned. But finances are dynamic and ever changing. And so we need to make better decisions about them. Talking about them with your significant other is one of the most important and most incredible ways to get intimate. Not only can you find places that you both just have outdated beliefs due to things that you learned from parents or who knows, some random neighbor, but you will also learn the emotional side of the other person. So say your partner has always wanted to go to Japan to try matcha from this beautiful ancestral place of matcha. And they want to do this because one day they want to open a cafe in the middle of the Midwest where matcha is not a thing. And so they want to bring back not just the flavor of matcha, but the ceremony, traditions, and the love behind matcha. Now this trip is important to them because it speaks to who that person is. This journey is going to need finances. And you have to decide as a couple, go on this trip, what other things are we putting to the side? Whatever it is, it's okay because your soul's journey is your soul's journey. And I believe you should go after that. But you need to think it through and you need your significant other to be on the same page. Because the reality is, if you're starting a business or you're doing something that's astronomically really cool, you're gonna need that support from your partner. Even if it's not financial, it needs to be mental. That mental sometimes can intertwine with money. In fact, often. Because money doesn't exist exactly. Money is what money does. It is a representation of value. So if you have $100 in your pocket right now, I don't have pockets, but if you had $100, if I had $100 in my pocket, until I transformed it into something or did something with it to exchange it for value, it is just a piece of paper in my pocket. Same thing with digits in a bank account. If you don't transform it into anything, if you don't give those numbers, values, digits on your computer a meaning, it just stays as little lights on a screen. What actually is money is what you decide to do with it. And that is so important to be on the same page with your partner about, because in fact, most people have a lot of issues around money in their relationships. I was raised by relationship money trauma, and I'm not the only one. In fact, about 45% of couples admit that they argue about money, and 25% of couples say it's their biggest argument. So if you're really thinking about it, isn't that crazy? Like absolutely bonkers. Oh, there's my gym bag and don't worry about that. But it's bonkers because it doesn't actually exist. So it's actually a lot of other underlying issues that money is sparking. And don't get me wrong. Money, when you're trying to make ends meet, is like a real oof issue because it's about survival. The psychology of money is super real. Super real. How we feel about the decisions we make surrounding money changes a lot based on those little digits or that piece of paper in your pocket. Those are all real things. Talking about money like this is not me trying to say that it doesn't. In fact, the reason I think we need to get to the root of money is so that a lot of the other conversations can have support. So my dad started his own business. As most people who have ever started a business know, that your first few years, you should be putting back any money that you get into your business, investing in yourself to grow, to expand. We started the business when me and my brother were really small, and it was a perfect time for him, and none of us would have had it any other way. But it meant that we, instead of putting money back into the business, we're just trying to make ends meet. That meant that there were a lot of mornings that I woke up to my parents arguing about money. They argued about money partly because didn't have gas, so we couldn't cook. We went winters without heat in Minnesota. There were actual issues that we were dealing with and that were making life incredibly uncomfortable and difficult. I remember one of their biggest fights. It always sticks out to me because it wasn't a fight about money. It was a fight about perspective. And their perspectives about how money should be used was very different. We would be getting to the end of the quarter because my dad was paid on a quarterly basis. It was not like we were doing really well at the beginning of the quarter and then very terribly at the end. We were just getting by at the beginning of the quarter and then slowly but surely didn't have enough money for gas by the end of the quarter. And either every quarter or every other quarter, my mom and dad would have the exact same fight. And it was about food. Yes, glorious, glorious food. See, their two perspectives on food was very different. So we'd be at the end last week of the quarter. Again, gas money, we were turning down going to things because we did not have money for gas. That's where we were at the end of the quarter. My dad would be like, listen, we have one more week to go, whatever. Just don't spend any money. Don't spend any money. We can go hungry for a couple of days. That's fine. That was not my mom's mentality. My mom's mentality is everything can be burning around us, but as long as we have food in the fridge, we'll be okay. We can hunker down. We can make it through. And that has to do with the different ways that they were brought up. My mom grew up with a grocery store connected to her house because my grandma ran an incredible grocery store. For them, even though there were 9 kids, there was a lot of chaos going on, even when money was tight in her family, they always had food. My dad, his dad was a pastor, and he was a pastor in rural Minnesota. So it's not like he was getting paid very much. And so money was just always tight. And so they just were taught to do with less. And the two perspectives, neither of them are right and neither of them are wrong. They're just very different. And so the thing that they lacked most, from my perspective, is curiosity. They lacked the curiosity to understand why the other person thought that way. And so in thinking that the other person just couldn't see how hard everything was, they isolated themselves from each other. It wasn't like we're a team and we can get through this. It was the other person is making my life very difficult. And thankfully, my parents figured it out. They're fine now, they're chill, they're whatever. But I would used to wake up to mornings where they would be screaming at each other. Little me at 6:30 in the morning, just trying to get ready for little elementary school, running out there and being like, stop fighting! And that honestly explains a lot of who I am today. Now as an adult, I have learned a lot from this experience because it has made me reflect on those experiences from my past. Not just as ooh, we didn't have enough, but ooh, how are we communicating with each other? How are we together in the mess, you know? And that's why I like working with couples. As I learned my own financial journey of understanding how to talk to other people about my financial situation, which there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of avoidance, there was a lot of, just emotions. And it wasn't until I met my significant other currently that I learned how to really talk about finances. Because even when I was able to make adult money and take care of myself, there was still so many things that I didn't know how to talk about. Student loans, have a lot of it. And that's all I used to say to him, even though we were living together. How much do you have in student loans? I don't know, a lot. So funny, because doesn't everyone? I realized how important it was to actually have full conversations, not just about the number, because once I was able to tell him the number, I was able to tell myself, because I hadn't told myself, which is part of the reason I hadn't told him, because I was avoiding it. Also, the emotional decision making that went into acquiring said student loans, because I do not just have student loans, I have Parent Plus loans. And so what went into taking on Parent Plus loans, which makes me feel so much guilt for putting that stress on my parents, is a whole depth of a different conversation. And all this to say that being able to talk to your partner about your financial situation, no matter what amount of money you make, no matter what kind of socioeconomical class that you come from, you guys have to be on the same page about it. Because even if you come from similar backgrounds, the way that you grew up around money and you spoke around money in your family, I guarantee was not exactly the same. You want to really have a beautifully intimate relationship of like best friends, of close partners, of like people who can really take on the world together. Explaining your wants, your desires, and how you guys plan to get there together is crucial and important. Well, so there is the first video. Thanks for coming along on this journey with me, you guys. I am Bobby Gray. Please hit the subscribe button, follow along. We're going to be going through different chapters of actually explaining conversations we should be having about finances. So subscribe, hit the bell, stick around, and I'm excited to go on this journey with you guys. Bye!